Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Under Ytan. This program where we explore the new paradigm in the business world together with thought leaders and entrepreneurs here in Sweden and across the globe. And today we are joined by a truly global man, I should say. You're Gunter Pauli.
Hey Ola.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. And welcome to Sweden. You're here to explore some other opportunities you've been working on for many, many years with this new paradigm, if you will. Tell us about your work and what brings you to Europe.
You know, I've been based in Japan since 1994. And I was invited to Japan by the United Nations and the Japanese government to start looking at new business models that would be part of the Kyoto Protocol. And it was about zero emissions and zero waste, and of course the idea was not that we had to stop emitting it. The idea was that we reduce our emissions, but whatever we need as a part of the natural process was going to be reused in something else, and we're going to reuse it locally. And that was a driving force of coming to a new paradigm, a new thinking, a new way of competing. And, after more than 20 years, we've succeeded in getting about 200 projects on track. $4 billion have been invested and 3 million jobs have been generated. But one of my challenges is that one of the region where we do the least is actually Europe. And it seems that Europe is rather conservative and rather mesmerized by the way to do business. Let's not forget that 7 out of the 10 most popular business schools around the world are all in Europe, and the French even have 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
So we seem to have a way of thinking about business that doesn't allow us to get out of the box.
Interesting. How can we do that then? A lot of the things you talk about is about creating new rules, changing the rules of the games, creating new business models. Why don't you explore on that?
You know, the key thing is not just to have a new product or a new process, not just an innovative process. What we really need is transforming the business model. And one of the things that we're very interested in is how we succeed in paying the farmers a real fair price. So we've initiated the business model whereby farmers receive 10% of the price paid by the consumer. It's like a royalty. I mean, it's like if the farmer gives you the milk, which is the basis for your ice cream, why do you want to press the price for milk down to the absolute bottom of 62 cents and then part subsidized by the European Union? I think that is a model that is going to drive the farmers out of business and makes the middlemen rich. So what we think is that we have to change this. Now, of course, you can't change it overnight. So we work with pockets, like in the Basque country, where we start with goat farmers who can actually produce ice cream and supply the ice cream. And the farmer goes from €1 per liter of goat's milk to €7. But there's no one losing any money, not the consumer. It's the middleman that's squeezed out, and it's actually the opportunity to give value to the great product that the farmer makes. Now, I can only tell you, a farmer gets in Spain €7 for a liter. You know, he will kiss every goat to bed because he's never seen that kind of money before. But now we have people wanting to be goat farmers. Now for €7 they can feed them sustainably. They will take care of the animal, and they are not going to cut the corners by having some super drug and some super feed that will give them super milk. And I think this is part of the game that we're in. Can we modify the way money circulates and money is earned in the economy? I mean, another example of Europe is the policy of the European Union for farmers not to farm. I mean, it's quite amazing. We pay millions of farmers around Europe not to farm. And what do you get when your land is not used for 20, 30 years? You get fields of thistles. So we started in Sardinia under the company Novamont. We started to think, how can we reconvert the old petrochemical facility feedstock we're using is a thistle. Now, a thistle is considered a weed, but out of that weed, today 6 products can be generated. You can make plastics, you can make lubricants, you can make herbicides, you can make elastomers. The waste is feed for the animals, and the flour has an enzyme which we can use to make the cheese. So we look at opportunities to turn something that we thought was nothing into a lot. And that again generates a new income for the land.
Yeah.
It reuses old capital investments, what we call stranded assets, and we turn that into cash generating assets. And our focus is not to cut the costs to the bottom so we can compete globally. Our goal is to generate so much more value that we can respond to all the basic needs in the local economy.
Makes sense. And there's you wrote a book, you mentioned a couple of your projects, and with 4 billion invested and millions of jobs created in this last book. One of those innovations is another book we have here with your fables that's actually printed on stone paper.
Yeah, China invented paper 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And the Chinese started thinking about how can he generate a new business for his machinery. And he was in the machinery bags making business, so the machinery to make paper bags.
Yeah.
He realized that there is a lot of cost in the raw material.
Yeah.
But not only that, he realized that the water consumption was going to stress out major parts of the world. Now, when you're in Sweden, you have enough water. For the time being, you have enough water. But when you're looking at the map of the world, India, China, Indonesia, drinking water is the scarcity. So he conceived to use ground rocks. And of course, people say, but why would you ever grind up the rocks? No. They're already ground. Because the mining industry, in order to get to the ore, the gold and the silver and the platinum and the rare earths and the copper and the zinc and the cobalt, you need to crush the rocks. And so the crushed rocks are finely crushed, blended with the polymer, which is a recycled plastic. And then you make a paper. And we produced these first books, which are the stone paper books, the first ones ever in Africa. But China has already decided to go for it. China is going to go to 1 million tons of stone paper a year. But why is the Chinese government so interested in this? Well, you don't use water. You don't have to plant trees anymore. And it can be recycled forever. Now we're completely changing again the business model, because we know that we should be recycling paper, but we know that you can only recycle 3, 4, maximum 5 times, and the fibers have gotten too short. Now stone paper can be recycled forever. So it allows us to change the business model from the balance sheet and the P&L point of view, and that is something where we really know that if we want to drive the project saving water and saving energy. These books in China, when they're all dirty and factory and turned back into paper, and therefore the next book will be sold at half the price. What is really happening is that the paper is not a cost for the company anymore. The paper turns into an asset on the balance sheet. Now, if you take paper out of the equation, then you're making much more profit. You're building up your asset base. Now, one of the big problems that businesses have today is they're over-leveraged, too much debt.
Yeah.
Everyone is forced to, by the banks in particular, is forced to take on much more assets. But how? Well, this is how we impact. We go from the saving of the water, the saving of the energy, the reusing of materials, to a business model that's
you mentioned in China and the trees there. I know, speaking of trees, and there was something happening in Berlin as well, isn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, Berlin, our rethinking in Berlin is how can we replant fruit trees around? Have become, of course, victim of the urbanization trend. That means everyone wants to live in the city where everything is happening. Yeah. We're increasing the density of the cities, but now where is the food coming? Is the city capable of producing its own veggies and fruits? Yeah. And so when we had a very creative look with a Japanese leader, little young dynamic artist lady Ayumi Matsusaka, when we looked at it, we realized that the greatest source to plant the trees are actually diapers. Now, you can't use the diapers that you're using now, which is 3 types of plastics and super absorbents, which will never degrade. You redesign the diaper, you put in the charcoal, you have a natural product with, of course, a bioplastic, and then what you have is a great holder of probably the richest nutrition that a baby produces. The first nutrition is converted into humus. So this is not composting, this is generating black earth. Now, have the nutrition for fruit trees. Now, the fruit trees, a 2-year-old, will cost you easily 100 kroner. Now you can sell it at half the price, and you have for every baby, every year, 1,000 fruit trees. That means 2,000 fruit trees over 2 years is what every baby. Now there are 100,000 babies in Berlin. Now 100,000 babies multiplied by 2,000 trees is millions of trees just with one baby. And of course, if you start looking at that for a city, you're talking about billions of trees. And so what we have now worked on is that we can generate a new forest, a fruit tree forest around the city that will be supplying the food for the babies for generations to come. And I think what we need is to go beyond the simple resource efficiency and energy efficiency and the circulating of nutrition materials and cascading of energy. We need to create a new economy that is so productive that actually in one generation there will be an abundance of fruits that will make any type of global import of apples from Latin America, from Chile, a madness, because you have so much yourself. And what was the driving force behind it? The babies, the pee, the poo, and the diaper.
It's good. We both have small kids, so we know we like the idea of making them
I love the idea.
self-sustainable.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. We have to talk about coffee as well. In Sweden, we are one of the biggest coffee drinkers in the world. And supposedly the coffee waste is certainly not waste.
Sweden not only is a coffee drinking nation, Sweden has good coffee and has traditional companies.
Yeah.
So one of the powers of Sweden is that it has a great taste for great quality. Become a sophisticated business. It's typically a family business as well. And so what we have called people's attention to is that when you finally drink your cup of coffee and you get that wonderful smell, it's only 0.2% of the coffee bean that ends up being ingested.
Yeah.
The rest is waste. So it means that for every cup of coffee, you have 500 times more material that is not used. Now, if you don't use it and you leave it where it is, it generates methane gas. That's not good for the environment. So we started 20 years ago farming mushrooms. That was invented in Hong Kong by the Chinese university. But the scientists behind it gave us an opportunity to take a first step. Then in Serbia, during the Balkan Wars, there was not enough feed for the animals because of the boycott. So they started farming mushrooms on straw, so that the straw was enriched with amino acids and could be given as feed to the animals. So we started combining the Hong Kong invention with the Belgrade invention to cascade coffee. So now first you have your cup of coffee, then you grow your mushroom. The waste of the mushroom you feed your chickens and your pigs and your cows. So that means that instead of a 1 cup of coffee, I now have my mushroom and I have my egg, because the chicken will lay an egg. And so that cascading of generating more and more with what you have led to further creative thinking. And today coffee, particularly industrial produced coffee, like when you create an extract for instant coffee, or you create an extract for an alcoholic drink, for coffee liqueurs, for example, then you have again the 99.8% wasted. Now that is of a very pure quality. That we use and blend it with textile fibers to make clothing, particularly underwear, that absorbs your body odors so you don't smell anymore. And now with Timberland, 20% goes into the shoe soles, that when you kick off your shoes you have no feet smelling. And so what we're seeing is that this whole logic starts evolving. Then other creative researchers started producing polyurethane laced with coffee, so that when you have an insulation around your fridge, that your fridge, which often has some odors, absorbs the odors naturally, and then it gets into carpets, so that your wall-to-wall carpets are odor absorbers instead of accumulators of coffee stains. And then it's put into paints. And you know, when you start thinking of it, this is all the coffee economy. So the coffee economy is not anymore the roaster and the coffee machines. The coffee has become a diverse, multiple function, multiple revenue, multiple benefit. And to me, the bottom line is that it's generating massive amount of jobs. And that's what we
could
need.
be anyways.
Yes.
Could do. Fantastic. We have a small tradition to round off these talks. Just gazing into the future a little bit. And a pioneer like you, I'm sure this could be fun. In 10 years, so it's 2015, we sit here in Stockholm. Let's move to 2025. What sort of paradigm do we live in then? What sort of economy are we part of? What does the business life look like?
I think the most important shift we're going to have is we're going to go to a healthy society. Health is going to supersede sustainability. We're going to become tremendously conscious that whatever we have been doing, it is not good enough to give us the health. Now, if you don't have the health, you don't have the happiness. So we're needing to move the sustainability debate to a health debate and a happiness debate. And I think within 10 years, we will realize that you can't have a happy society when 25% of the youth is unemployed. You can't have a happy society when people are alcoholic or hooked on drugs. And why are people not hooked on drugs and seeking refuge in alcohol? Yeah. Because they don't have a meaning of life anymore. They don't feel the challenge anymore. And I think, therefore, we are going to need to rethink our education system. And I think in 10 years, the debate will become very hot on what have we done with our children. How have we spoiled them rotten? How come they haven't been challenged anymore? And how can we recover our society through the logic of sustainability, health and happiness?
That's a good question. Look forward to be on that quest with you.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks
Ola.
for joining.
See you.
Safe travels back to South Africa. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for tuning in, everyone. As always, take care. Ciao.